There isn't any action that they're taking that you can look at. I'm thinking that with the budget, with the miscellaneous tax bill, you can say, these aren't acceptable. There isn't an education bill that you're looking at saying, well, this is unacceptable too, is there?
I don't see any action on bending the cost curve. I proposed a few ideas in my budget back in January. There have been others that have been talked about during the legislative session in the last few months. What I said to legislative leaders yesterday is do something. Do something to avoid a $96 million increase in school costs next year. And do it now, because remember the complaints we've heard in the past that it's too late, we're writing our school budgets, we need more notice. Well, it's 14 months before the beginning of the fiscal year after the one that begins this summer. So school districts would have plenty of notice if the legislature were to approve some of these recommendations to build it into their next budgets.
Are you really saying, though, where the tax burden is falling the heaviest, are those families that don't participate in income sensitivity, so that 30% of Vermont households, that's where it's out of balance and not with the other 70?
Income sensitivity obviously provides a tremendous relief to a lot of taxpayers, but in addition to those who are not in income sensitivity for their primary residences, remember that 71% of all non-residential property in Vermont is owned by Vermonters. It's extra acreage, it's deer camps, it's small businesses, it's larger businesses in some cases. But it's not just rich out-of-staters who are hit by the burden of the property tax. It's a lot of Vermonters who are struggling to get by. And among other items, I heard the CEO of Burton mention property taxes as one reason in that company's recent announcement about moving its production overseas. So this really makes a difference in the number of jobs that are created in Vermont, the number of jobs that are retained here, and we have to recognize that.
Hey, are you willing to give up on local control of school spending?
I understand the long-standing tradition of local control of public education and respect it. I've had a number of relatives serve on school boards in the Middlebury area and appreciate those thousands of Vermonters who do. But remember, we have a system now that was enacted 13 years ago that has a state education fund, a state property tax, a huge transfer from the general fund that comes from all the taxpayers of the state through the Treasury to the Ed Fund. We've diverted some other resources from our sales tax and purchase and use tax into the education fund. So the state has a much larger interest in the funding of public education than perhaps it did at some point in the past. And since it's the largest expenditure we make, $1.5 billion every year, I think the legislature has a responsibility to bend that curve. I think it's in the state's best interest.
Are you saying it's already gone there?
I think it's diminished from where it was.
Governor, how would you describe Senator Shumlin's leadership style?
I always should ask those who are following it better than I meet with him regularly, as I have other leaders in the Senate and the House during my tenure here, and talk about issues of mutual interest. We're always cordial. We don't always agree, but I'm doing my best to work with him and other leaders to get an orderly adjournment.
Well, you do meet with him quite a bit. How would you describe his personality to folks who don't know him?
Well, interesting question, Kristen. I'm supporting Brian Dupee for governor because he's the best choice to lead our state for the coming couple of years. He has a leadership style that's outstanding, that's collegial, that's cordial. He relates to Vermonters in a very positive way, and I hope and expect, no matter who the Democratic candidate is over the coming months, that Vermonters will realize that Brian is the best choice for the job.
Well, right now, the Lieutenant Governor isn't in a position to make a lot of key decisions at the end of the session. Peter Shumlin is, and that's why I'm asking this question. So I'm just curious, how do you describe your working relationship with him?
Well, it's a group relationship in the sense that Brian is involved. At the end of the legislative session last year, he was at the table, and we had interminable meetings over the pavilion with the leader of the Senate and the Speaker of the House to try to work out a budget that didn't succeed. and he was here yesterday when we all met and will continue to be an integral part of it. So Senator Shumlin is a part of that leadership group, and I hope that he'll recognize that what the Vermonters who've been here at the State House this week say is important, and take to heart the concerns of the Vermonters who are suffering from a tax burden that's disproportionate, and join me in doing something about it. So I guess I'm pitching only because a critical point will come here in the next days or weeks, and I'll probably have a clearer view of my opinion of his leadership style after we wrap the session up.
What would you say you work better with, the House Speaker or the Senate President pro tem?
Gosh, somebody overheard me saying in a moment of exasperation a year or so ago, gosh, I miss Peter Welch.
You talk about education spending. Are you supporting the changes to income sensitivity in both the House and the Senate, having the value of the House as well as the assets test and the $1 million of personal wealth excluding your primary residence? Are those, all three of those positive?
I think they are. I know that CPAs have raised concerns about the administrative burden of including some of those provisions, and ironically, perhaps, over the last couple of years, we've removed asset tests from several human service programs. 3 Squared Vermont, now the former food stamp program, and the fuel assistance program, frankly, for administrative ease. So there is a downside, and when Mr. Wolfish was here yesterday and talked about the extra burden that would place on the CPAs and perhaps on the tax department, I think the legislature needs to listen to that. But conceptually, I certainly don't have a problem with it.
Do you think it makes it more fair?
Well, I think Vermonters are understandably outraged when 74 people who have homes that are worth more than $1 million get a full property tax rebate.